Welcome to Guardians of the Secret Coffee Talks. This is the video for Rotting King. Okay, so the concept of Rotting King is mainly tackling the idea or the theological idea of idolatry. I think in our Western 21st century lens, we view this concept of idolatry as kind of like a very foreign and a very old way of looking at the world. But I don't think we give it enough credit. No, I'm not saying I'm a doctor in theology or anything like that. The research I have seen shows that idolatry is a very complex, rich idea that has helped explain reality as a whole. So the first verse is really going to be a time capsule taking us back to the Near East about 3,000 years ago. The lyrics go, "Smell the incense all around you, see the message in the entrails, communication of the dead, the gods are gratified." This verse, I kind of just want to paint a picture of taking us back in time to an old temple in the Near East, and just having the incense around, having the priest lay out entrails so they can read the ideas or the wishes of the gods, and communicating with the dead to speak with them. The next few lines are, "Let our sons be the mortar, let our daughters be the sacrifice, killing in the name of what's good and what's right." "Let our sons be the mortar" is specifically referencing the Old Testament story of the Tower of Babel. The research that I've done on it and looked into, it particularly talks about how the Tower of Babel is a rebellion story, and how it's really humanity just trying to define reality on their own terms, mirroring what has happened in the Garden of Eden, just on a more advanced, bigger scale. The mortar and the bricks are being made by the people, and they keep building the tower higher and higher to eventually reach the gods. And so instead of letting God come back down here and make God's space here, essentially the story is talking about how we try to define reality on our own terms and try to bring ourselves and elevate ourselves to the status of the gods. So the sons being the mortar is essentially just this idea of just, we will kill anybody or anything, even if it's our own sons, to elevate ourselves to that status. "Let our daughters be the sacrifice." That's particularly just talking about sacrificing virgin women, or just human sacrifice in general. The sons was used in the first verse, or in the first line, and so I mirrored it with the daughters in the second part. And then the line goes, "Killing in the name of what's good and what's right." Not objectively what's good and what's right, but subjectively what's good and what's right. The chorus goes, "Crown your rotting king, this is your new deity." The imagery is essentially just the idea of putting or exalting a crown on top of these false gods or these idols, essentially a rotting king. The idea and the concepts for the lyrics I actually got from a tattoo that I have. It has the rotting skull and then a crown on top of it, and it's just a message to myself, a reminder that anything that I exalt above God, it is a crown on a rotting dead man, on a rotting king. As for the theological and Near Eastern worldview of idols, from what I heard, idols were particular images or image bearers, stone, wood, whatever material it's made of. Essentially, that isn't the god, that is just the image of the god. And so the idea is you put this in the temple, and the god from the god realm, from the divine area, comes and houses itself in the temple or in the idol where you place it. So that Near Eastern worldview is saying that these idols, these images, they are just material objects, but there are forces behind them working through and using them as vehicles to get whatever they want done. If I'm not mistaken, in the Old Testament, it does talk about how humans are the original Tselem, or image bearers of God. And so that's one of the reasons why we don't need idols to represent God, because we are the images of God. Also in that worldview, it's saying that there is one God, and He is the Creator God, but there is also a divine council, and they have a play in this universe as well. It's interesting enough, in this book that I've read called The Unseen Realm by Dr. Heiser, it talks about how there is a mirroring image between the human rebellion and the spiritual rebellion. And the spiritual rebellion isn't the typical, like horns and pitchforks kind of thing. It's much more sophisticated than that. In that it is a council that is with God, in God's space, but they have decided to also define reality on their own terms, so in turn splitting away from God, just as the humans have split away from God. And so essentially this plays into this huge idea of the biblical narrative of the rebellion, but then what is God going to do? He's going to come back down here and fix the problem. He's going to mend the human rebellion and mend the spiritual rebellion. So now you've had your theology lesson for the day. The next lines are, tear the veil of space and time to ensure you're exalted. So the concept of the spiritual realm is a little hard to get our minds around. It's kind of this idea of there's the spirit realm, and then there's the physical realm, and there's kind of this veil. It's very porous, but it can interact with each other and affect each other. What happens in the human world essentially can mirror and happen in the spiritual world, and vice versa. Beings from the spiritual realm can enter into the physical realm, and physical beings can enter into the spiritual realm. And this concept of tearing this veil of space and time just to make sure that you're exalted, whether this be a spiritual being or even a human being, just simply exalting yourself above the Creator God. Next line is, rites in the shrine of evil now appease their bloodlust. This is essentially more imagery, bringing the listener to the song into this space or this shrine where there's human sacrifice going on, appeasing the bloodlust of the gods. And essentially the humans too, making sure that they know that they are better than others around them. Fear, pitiless leaders worship the gilded idol. So this part is particularly talking about the idea of using religion as this way, or even spirituality as this way to harness people and use them to control them. Desecrate the image of flesh, the acts of piety. So this concept of the human being being the Tselem of God, breaking that down and showing that humanity is in rebellion, and just that doesn't matter anymore. We have made our priorities something else. And then it dives into the course again. Then it jumps into breakdown number 1. Dance on the funeral pyres till you dance on your ashes. It's basically more imagery of just talking about how we do these rituals and how we just keep dancing and we think it's fun and it's a big game to us, but in reality we're dancing on our own funeral pyre, and eventually we'll just dance until there's nothing left. Then it jumps back into the chorus again. Then it goes to breakdown number 2. There is no way to hide from the inside of the sardonic mask.
There is no way to hide from the inside of the sardonic mask.
This one I did some more research on just to try to get in the headspace of idol worship and understanding what I was trying to talk about, I came across this very, very sad story of how in the ancient Near East, specifically the Phoenicians, I believe, they had this ritual where they would have children sacrifices. They would get this sardonic mask. It's a smile. And essentially it's a mask that you put on the infant when you throw them into this fire. They have this ritual going to where there's loud music and song and dance happening. That way you don't hear the child, and that way you don't see the child's expression. You just see the smiling sardonic mask. This is essentially another ritual to appease the gods, but it's also a metaphor for ourselves too. We put on this mask, this smiling mask, this sardonic mask, to show that our outsides are really, happy and we're all clean and, good. But then on the inside, there's really hurt and broken relationships, specifically dealing with idolatry. We chase after these things that have no real value, or we elevate them above God, and we walk around with this fake smile on all the time, acting like everything's fine when in reality it's not. And then it jumps into the chorus one more time. Just like with anything in life, I think it's important to look at the context. When it comes to the Near Eastern worldview and idol worship, it's no different. You have to look at the context of it. There are many people who are much smarter than me who have written extensively about this subject. I'll leave a link in the description below. There's the Bible Project and Dr. Heiser. The Unseen Realm, Demons, Angels, those are some really good books. So if you want more context, I would definitely suggest those books. Idol worship in general is a very profound concept that I think is very misunderstood. I would argue that today it is more prevalent than ever. Really, history hasn't changed when it comes to the concept and idea of idolatry. The things that humans put value on, that's the only thing that's really changed. And even then, I think it's very limited change. For example, we still put sex above God. We still put fame above God, money above God. The list just goes on and on and on. This, of course, is coming from a Christian lens, Christian worldview. For my non-Christian listeners, I hope that it was heavy enough to get down to and that you could at least just enjoy the music and rock out to it. If anything, maybe it's just cool imagery. For me, I like to write about personal things, and I like to write about things that have meaning. To me, this holds a lot of meaning in my life. I had an absolute blast writing this song, going through and going through the different angles and doing all the research. I hope all of you have enjoyed this song as well. It is out now. Some more stuff for the song should be dropping very soon. Dan says bye. Say bye, Danny. Bye, Danny. Bye, guys.